Hello, good evening, everybody, or good morning in some parts of the world. Welcome to the webinar today. We've got quite a lot of people still coming in to the meeting room, but I think we can make a start, and we'll be able to catch up as we go. And yeah, just coming up to 2 minutes past 6 here in the south of Portugal, and it's a Friday evening, so I have my Friday outfit on rather than my full suit. But here we are. So yeah, putting in an extra special shift to try and get the message out and all the information needed, whilst the golden visa program here in Portugal still remains under the current criteria, which of course is due to change in the near future. So today I'm going to look to answer, of course, the question of, do I still have enough time to qualify for the golden visa? And I'll be giving a full update on really a few key topics. So I'll bring up the latest news on everything that you need to know from the front line here in the ALGARVE. We'll be looking at the basics of the golden visa as well. So for those that are perhaps just starting their journey of exploring the visa program, to understand exactly what it is, how it works, what the process is involved, how long it takes, and of course, which family members can be included, what type, what is the criteria to qualify, and so forth. So yeah, I'll give a good overview on everything that you need to know. Thereafter, we'll have a look at some of the current top picks for the different investment options that you can qualify for the golden visa with. And of course, the main focus of this evening is a live Q&A session. I've already had over 150 questions come in. A lot of them are very similar. So naturally, I think I'll be able to answer a lot of questions as I go through the information with you shortly. However, for anything that I do miss or any particular questions that you have, please do use the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, I'll try and be as helpful as I can. And yeah, like I say, the kind of focus of this evening is to, like I say, answer questions in bulk to give everyone the information that they need to work out if the golden visa is something that they want to get involved with before the new laws come into effect. So to introduce myself, for those that have not seen me or logged into the webinars previously, my name is Jason Swan. As you can tell, I'm here in Portugal, down in the south. Unfortunately, I don't get to see any of the sunshine because I'm locked in my office most of the day, especially over the past couple of months, as you can tell from my lack of any kind of tan whatsoever. But it has been over 35 degrees today, and it is typically very nice this week. And looking forward to starting the weekend, certainly. But I am a senior partner at Holborn Assets. Holborn Assets, if you're not familiar, a wealth management practice. We're one of the largest wealth management practices now in Europe. We manage in excess of $3 billion between 20 offices now worldwide. And around about 6 years back, we launched a particular part of the group, which is designed to achieve residency and citizenship for our clients by way of investment. The Portuguese Golden Visa is one of 8 different citizenship programs that we offer, including the likes of Cyprus, Spain, Greece, Malta, and the Caribbean islands as well, also to the US. But of course, tonight I'm going to focus on Portugal, which is my hometown, and I should be able to answer any questions that you have about the visa program, as well as any questions you have generally about life in Portugal, which is nice. Like I said, I've been here for 2 years. Unfortunately, I can't speak very much Portuguese at all. I'm very good with numbers, not particularly good with languages, unfortunately. Previous to Portugal, I lived in Spain. I was in Spain for 5 years. My Spanish was about as good as my Portuguese, and previous to Spain, I was originally from Manchester in the UK. So I'm a specialist when it comes to the golden visa program. I'm also a qualified and regulated financial planner here in Portugal, and I often assist with not just the golden visa, but actually helping to plan financially for your move, as well as help mitigate the Portuguese tax system and make sure everything is in order for when you move. But yeah, for today, we're going to just focus on the golden visa. So just to start with some basics now, at this relatively late stage of the program, I would assume most are quite familiar with what what it is. However, as a quick recap, the golden visa in Portugal remains to be the most popular route to European citizenship, and it works by way of being a 2-year VIP pass, if you like, to live full-time in Portugal. You can live, work, retire, or just sunbathe to your heart's content with a golden visa, and you have all the benefits of being a Portuguese citizen, other than you cannot vote and you cannot run for president. But apart from that, you have access to quite a lot of benefits of being a Portuguese citizen, which I'll show you in a second. But the visa lasts for 2 years. After those 2 years, you can renew the visa, and you can continue to renew the visa every 2 years for as long as you'd like. However, after the 5th year, you can apply for permanent residency in Portugal and also citizenship, which allows you then to live in any of the European countries. So it's kind of like getting 27 passports all at the same time. Portugal's program has the fastest time to citizenship of all the EU paths, just 5 years. Spain, just next door, is 10 years. Greece, potentially 7 years. And again, remains to be the only country as well where you can qualify for the visa and citizenship by being in the country for only 2 weeks every 2 years. So you don't have to physically move to Portugal in order to have the visa and to receive the passport in 5 years' time. So that works particularly well for those that are maybe thinking of retiring in the future to Portugal or other European countries for that matter. Perhaps children wanting to study in Europe at a later date, or maybe just a plan B. You know, if you do decide to move at some point in the future, to have like the go-to option of Europe is a great thing to have. So yeah, we've done over 10% of the world's golden visa applications now, and we maintain a 100% success rate as well, which we plan to keep. So we do carry out a lot of due diligence, both on our clients and, of course, the investments that we recommend to make sure that everything goes to plan. So that's what it is. That is like I said, the treasure at the end of the rainbow is the European passport, all starting with the visa. So as you get the visa, as I mentioned, you get access to a number of benefits in Portugal. The most popular being the healthcare system. It's one of the top healthcare systems in the world, which you automatically get access to by the state. Secondly is education. Okay, education for family by being a golden visa holder. Excuse me. What else? 300 days of sunshine, apparently. And of course, an overall very nice standard of living. I came to Portugal for a few reasons, really. One was, of course, the very nice weather, which I kind of had in Spain, but typically it's a little bit warmer in the south of Portugal. In the Algarve, it's quite a relaxed, quite peaceful, most of the time, place of the world to live. And you have, of course, Lisbon in the city centre. That's where the capital in Lisbon, which is much more cosmopolitan and built up. And of course, you have Porto up in the north as well. So those are generally the three key areas. On top of those features, for some, you may also benefit for preferential tax treatment as well. Portugal offers a very unique tax regime for new residents, which allows you to have a very low rate of tax on certain types of overseas income, which I'll come back to shortly. But other than that, yeah, like I say, you're not going to go too far wrong, in my very biased opinion, in Portugal. Like I said, I moved here for a number of reasons. Mainly the tax incentives are phenomenal for certain types of income. The weather is great. The lifestyle is second to none. I personally think it's the best place to live, certainly in Europe. But yeah, for those that are physically moving to Portugal, I just want to clarify that first of all, the golden visa itself does not change your tax status. There's a common misconception. Your tax does not change by applying for the visa. Your tax only changes when you physically move to Portugal. Okay, so you can have a visa, you can have a passport, but your tax situation will not change only until when you physically move to Portugal, whenever that may be. And once you spend over 6 months of the year in Portugal, that is when you'll become tax resident here as well. Now, at that time, you can apply for a very unique tax regime called non-habitual residence. and that allows new residents of Portugal to apply for a low rate of tax on their overseas income. In particular, those that are fortunate enough to be drawing an income from dividends, whether it be a share portfolio or a personal holding in a company, can actually draw those completely tax-free in Portugal for the first 10 years, which is a big plus. Also rental income. So for those maybe renting out the property at home or perhaps have a property portfolio, again, you can draw that rental income tax-free in Portugal. Pension income for those that are retired or will be retired at some point during the first 10 years. Again, it's capped at just 10%. And for those that are still working, either employed or self-employed, there is a low rate of tax of just 20% on the basis that you work within a certain profession, generally to the benefit of Portugal in some way. And yeah, long term, kind of after that initial period, there are ways of which we can help kind of structure your assets so that you can have a 60% discount on your long-term income from savings and investments as well. So loads of exciting tax information to look forward to. Again, just to clarify that this is not relevant until you physically move to Portugal. It doesn't kick in just with the visa itself. Everything stays exactly the same as it is now for your tax until you physically move over here. Okay, so now we've got the boring bit out of the way about tax. Let me bring you up to speed with the topic of the webinar. Is there still enough time? I'll tell you exactly how much time you have in a moment, but just so you know what exactly is happening. Back in February this year, the government announced that the Golden Visa program is going to be cancelled after 11 years and bringing billions of euros of income by way of foreign investment to Portugal. The plan was to scrap the program entirely as a way to potentially solve the housing crisis in Portugal, which in short, the house prices have rapidly increased over the last few years. Since 2020, prices have increased by over 30%, and they continue to increase at a high rate. And yeah, a lack of general available housing. So the removal of the Golden Visa program was one of 16 potential solutions to that problem. However, there's been a bit of a roller coaster ride. My webinars over the past 6 months have always had a slightly different message, but it is always to a similar theme that there is going to be a change. But fortunately, there was a last-minute U-turn about a month back to say that the program is no longer going to be cancelled, which is great news. However, the change that is going to happen is as follows. Now, property investment, which has equated to about 95% of applications in the past 2 years, will no longer qualify for the program. So you will no longer be able to invest in property of any kind when the new law is passed and get the visa as well. Now, property is the only asset class which qualifies at less than 500,000. It can be done with as little as 280,000 at the moment, but that is going to jump up to 500,000 when the new law is passed. So the good news is, for those that are investing from 500 upwards, you can relax. We've got as much time as we need. That's going to be with us for the foreseeable future. However, if you wanted to achieve the visa with less than 500,000, or you want to invest into property, then you need to be looking to beat the deadline of when that new law is passed. Once property is removed, there will still be the option to invest into investment funds, Portuguese investment funds, or should I say investment funds that predominantly invest in Portugal. That is another element that we can help with. I'm not going to go into that too much this evening because, of course, it is purely around the urgency of the change, but the investment funds will remain the same. There are different investment funds from low risk, medium risk, high risk. The returns can vary, but of course there is generally a fund to suit your personal requirements. You can also set up a business in Portugal. You can set up a business with 500,000 and employ a certain number of staff. That's another way to qualify for the visa. Or if you're feeling very generous, you can donate 250,000 euros. That's not to me, unfortunately, that is to the government. And they will also give you a golden visa. However, I've not found anybody that's donated 250,000 just yet. I don't know why. But nonetheless, it is an option. And lastly, we were kind of hoping that there's going to be some kind of transition period when the law is passed. However, as it stands, it's been made pretty clear that the law will be implemented immediately. So that's where it stands. It's not all bad news. The programme lives to see another day. And yeah, like I say, the downside is that property is going to be eliminated from the programme. So this is the kind of the kind of timeline, okay, that we have now. On the 21st of September, today is the 15th, so in 6 days' time, the government will resume the discussion around what is called the mass habitation law, the new draft law around, of course, the housing crisis in Portugal. They're going to review the golden visa as part of that. It's not the only thing that's in discussion, but the part that we're interested in is back in the Parliament discussion. And in short, yeah, the president's going to have to vote again on that same draft. Now, amazingly, we were actually expecting the new law to be passed a couple of weeks ago, and it was all set to finish a couple of weeks back. But yeah, amazingly, the president actually vetoed that final draft and sent it back to Parliament because he wasn't happy with it. However, it's going to come right back to him in a couple of weeks' time, and he's going to have to vote on it again. The difference this time is that the government can force his hand, and are going to force his hand, so that the law will be passed this time. Now, all things considered, we expect the new law to come into effect as of the second week of October. Okay, so that, assuming we're kind of mid-September, we've got 3 to 4 weeks we expect before the new law comes into effect. So up until that time, we can submit new applications. The government has confirmed, the Prime Minister has confirmed that any applications that are submitted before that date, before the law physically changes, will be honoured and protected under the current law. We just need to get the tracking number from SEF before the date of the law change, and then we have as much time as we need to get everything done. And so, yeah, 3 to 4 weeks from now, that will be the cut-off date. On average, it takes 2 to 4 weeks to start from scratch to submit an application. The fastest that we have done it is 10 days. So the fastest we would get it done from now is around about, if we started the process on Monday, we would get it done around about the 27th to the end of September-ish. But again, the average is closer 2 to 4 weeks to get everything done. So time is of essence. There's no need to feel kind of rushed at this point. It is still a lot of information that you'll need to be able to make any decisions. However, if this is something that you are seriously considering, my advice is to take the time to get the information that you need to be able to make a decision whilst you still have the option of qualifying at 280. To do so, yeah, you can schedule some time to speak on a one-to-one basis after the weekend, at which point I can go through any questions I've missed this evening, or of course anything that you'd like to go through. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. So we're okay. So to answer the questions of the webinar, yes, you still have time to qualify, but time is of essence. We are going to accept applications next week, but as of the end of next week, it is likely we're going to stop new applications at the 280 level, simply because it's just going to get too close to the change. But we're okay for now. So you have two options, basically. Obviously, those that are looking to qualify at 500, it's fine. You have as much time as you need. However, for those that want to get involved at 280, my advice is you need to start pretty much straight away at this point. Hopefully, you've had some time to be aware of the changes that have been talked about since February this year. But now is the time to start the ball rolling if you want to qualify at 280. Now, what we have done is we have removed any risk, okay, the program closing halfway through, okay, and in a worst case scenario, if you start the process now and it does finish before the second week of October, or for whatever reason we just don't have enough time, we will refund any money that you have spent. Okay, Holborn will pay back to you any monies that you paid to a lawyer or to things like a deposit on a property and so forth. So we've created that option where you can do your best. You still have a very good chance of meeting the deadline, but just in case, you'd not got any money at risk in case it closes early. Of course, if you can continue or wish to continue at the 500 mark, it's very simple, simply to pivot from 280 to 500 as well. There's something else I was going to say on that, and I've completely forgot. But yeah, you get the idea. That's the that is where we're at the moment. So I'll just do a few more slides, and then we'll take a quick break for some questions. So yeah, just for a comment, so yeah, and any questions, hopefully that's nice and clear as to how long we have and the process, timing. I'll show you exactly what the process is in a moment. But hopefully everyone is now up to date on how much time that you have, when the program is going to close. But any questions on that, again, please drop them in the Q&A. We'll come to those very shortly. And yeah, we're moving on. So as far as who can qualify, now, the idea behind the golden visa is that you can bring up to 3 generations of your family across to Portugal on the same application. Now, anyone that doesn't already have an EU passport can apply for the visa. And they can also include their dependent family members. Now, dependent can be their spouse, whether it be married or unmarried is fine, as long as you live together if not married. You can bring children up to the age of 21. Potentially older if they're still in full-time education. And should you so wish, you can bring your parents as well. And parents over the age of 65 are automatically assumed dependent. Therefore, they don't actually have to be dependent on you in any way. As long as they are over 65, they can be included on the same application. Sometimes we may change who is the main applicant to get extra people on. Sometimes we may change the main applicant to son or daughter to have you as, you know, the dependents, depending on ages and situations. But I'll talk you through, of course, the best way to structure that. But yeah, other than that, it can't include brothers or sisters or colleagues or pets, just spouse, children, parents. And you can do that all on the same application. Okay, current criteria is as follows. So real estate is still possible. Okay, and the current rules, which were changed last in 2022, are as follows. Now, you can still technically buy residential property. However, you can no longer buy residential property in the main cities, such as Lisbon, Porto, or basically anywhere on the coast. You can only buy and qualify for the visa with property that is inland Portugal. Okay, and that starts at 500,000 euros. If it's in a low density area, that drops down to 400,000 euros. Now, commercial property has generally been the go-to for, well, at least the past couple of years. And commercial property, quite simply, is very similar in all regards, apart from it's an investment as opposed to for somewhere for you to live. Okay, it's going to be an investment which you may be able to stay at from time to time, but it's not residential accommodation. It's a commercial property of some kind, which typically falls into the likes of maybe a hotel, possibly a co-working space, some kind of business premises, if you like. It has to have a commercial license and not a residential license. Now, with commercial property, if you invest in a commercial property which is going through a full renovation, and the property is dated over 30 years old, you can qualify at 350. And if you can do that in an area which is still a low density area, then that comes right down to 280. And that's where we get that 280 from. Now, low density isn't necessarily a bad area. It just means that less people live there per square mile, I think. And by investing in those areas is where we get the 280 from. So as part of our service, apart from facilitating the process, we'll make some recommendations for properties at each of those price points, different parts of Portugal, but we have put together a portfolio of properties that we feel confident to recommend And you'll generally find that properties at 4 and 500,000 tend to be more profitable. However, properties at 280, although less profitable, of course, get exactly the same visa, but with half as much cash. So it is just a personal preference what type of investment that you choose. Generally speaking, if you was to invest the difference between 280 and 500, you'd probably make up the difference in profits anyway, and be able to, of course, have access potentially to more cash during that time. But again, I'll give you some examples as we go through. So that's the current real estate rules. As far as other options which will remain, you have, of course, Portuguese investment funds, as we mentioned, from 500,000. You can also invest into Portugal's scientific research from 500,000, and you can set up a business or the donation, as we talked about before. For any questions on the investment funds, which again I'm not going to cover this evening, please do book in some time over the next couple of weeks, and we'll go through those on a one-to-one basis. Okay, so as a quick recap, and then I think we'll do some questions in a sec. So step one, we need to find a property. That's the first thing you need to do. Find something that qualifies for the program, make a reservation, and then as soon as we have that, we can then start the process. And the first thing that we must do is apply for your Portuguese tax numbers, which are referred to as the NIF, or NIF in Portugal. That part is very quick. We can do that within a few days. The NIF, or part of the process is also setting up a bank account. However, it does take over 3 months to set up a bank account for abroad at the moment. We will do that on your behalf. However, it is something that we will do after the submission to make sure that we meet the deadline. But once we have your tax numbers, you'll meet with the acting law firm. They will go through the legal pack for the property, and they will review the different contracts with you. You'll complete the power of attorney, just as you would do with any property purchase. And they will then ask you to transfer the funds to the escrow account for them to then complete the purchase on your behalf. Okay, or as it's referred to, they will execute the public deed for the ownership of the property. As soon as you've done that, and we have proof of ownership, we can then submit your application to CEF. And that's it. That's all we've got to do. That's the checkpoint. We've just got to submit the application to CEF before the deadline, and then yeah, we can relax. No time restraints from that point. About 6 months after that time, you'll have then a meeting with CEF. It'll be the first time that you physically need to travel to Portugal, and you'll be accompanied on that day to do your fingerprints and your photo and help with translation and so forth. And around about 6 months after that appointment, you'll get the visa, which will look a little bit like this one here at the bottom. So we do all this for you. It looks very complicated, but myself and my team do all of the above. The only thing that you physically need to do is travel to Portugal, which is a horrible request, I know, but you will need to do that about 6 months after the application for your biometrics. Up until that point, everything is done remotely. And yeah, of course, with my team, we will, like I say, I'm kind of like the project manager. There will be an external lawyer. There will be, of course, dealing with CEF and appointments and translations and tax numbers and applications, but we do all that for you and try and make it as easy as we can. And from that point, the visa will last for 2 years. As we mentioned, we can renew the visa every 2 years after you've had it for 5 years. And on the basis that you have kept a clean criminal record, and also you've learnt a basic level of Portuguese, to a level better than my Portuguese at the moment, should we say it's around about age 16 level of Portuguese understanding, and you can take that test at any point during the visa period, and it's done you can do it at any local test centre, but to apply for permanent residency and citizenship, we do need to show that you understand the basic level of Portuguese. As a general rule, most of our clients starting from scratch as a crash course and seem to get through that within about 3 months, or you can, of course, study it over the full time. But once we get to the citizenship, as I said, that's effectively getting 27 passports then all at the same time, allowing you to live in any of the EU countries. Portuguese passport is one of the top passports in the world, allowing you visa-free travel to over 187 countries. Okay, and yeah, as I say, living anywhere in Europe. So, it's a final recap before some questions. The process from now, if we start the process from today's date, it would take on average 2 to 4 weeks to be able to submit the application. Again, if we have all the documents ready, if we get everything done super fast, we can do it in as little as 10 days, but always best to give as much room, much breathing space as we can for any delays. And again, on average, 2 to 4 weeks to get everything done. Once we've done the submission, we'll have around about 12 months then to receive the visa, which we'll need to renew after the 2nd year. We'll renew again after the 4th year, and after the 5th year, you'll then have the application for your passport. Piece of cake. That's it. That's everything. That's all that is involved. So I hope that's okay so far. But I've got some questions coming through, so we'll take a few, and I'll run you through the top picks for the investment properties as well. Hello, hi there, Mohammed. Thanks for joining. Hi there, Shaheen. Will we be getting a copy of this recording presentation, or should we be taking notes? It's a good question. No one ever, I don't know how many people normally take notes, but yeah, we'll be sending a recording. It will be uploaded to YouTube over the next couple of days, and we'll get that out to you as soon as possible. If you want to get a kind of a super early copy, please do send me an email at jason.swan@holbornassets.com, and I'll make sure that comes out to you, Shaheen. Hi there, Haroon. I'm from Pakistan. How can I begin the process? Well, Haroon, first thing I would recommend is to book a meeting. We'll choose a property, we'll go through all the costs involved, and then we can get started. Yeah, jason.swan@holbornassets.com, and of course my details will be on the end of the webinar. What does visa-free travel mean? Does that mean I get free travel movement throughout the EU once the visa is granted, or am I restricted to 90 days in 180? Well, it means that you have visa-free travel to 187 countries, and there are certain nationalities that don't have the luxury of visa-free travel. So for those that have generally a first world passport like the US or the UK, by default, we get visa-free travel to quite a lot of the world. So for those that already have visa-free travel, it is maybe less of a feature, that part, but the visa itself will allow you to live in Portugal for more than that 90-day restriction that we have at the moment. After the 5 years, that is when you can live in any of the European countries without any restrictions at all. Does the law apply to residency on the island of Madeira? Madeira is fine. We actually have a nice hotel in Madeira. So yeah, Elise, yeah, thank you for your question. But Madeira is fine. There are restrictions, there are still rules to follow, but yeah, I can make a good recommendation for Madeira if you'd like to get property there. Suppose we apply next week. What is the timescale for the investment? Well, we need that the investment must be funded and purchased for us to submit the application, which has to be done before the law changes. So in an ideal world, we want to complete the purchase by the end of September. But end of September, early October would be when you'd be needing to complete the purchase. At 280, again, at 500, there isn't as much of a rush, but at 280, yeah, it would be pretty quick. How much is the cost for application, including your charge? We don't charge any fees. We are paid, of course, but by us facilitating the golden visa, our fees are actually paid by the developers of the properties. So there's no fees for us. For you as the investor, you generally just have your legal fees and government fees, both of which can vary depending on how many family members are to be included, and of course which property that you choose. But when we speak one-to-one, I'll bring up on screen the costs for whichever properties you want to look at, and I can run those through with you, nice and easy. Okay, hi there, Oleg. Are the spouse's parents included too, even when the spouse themselves is not included in the application? Yes, I did an application a few weeks back with 13 people, which included step parents, and it was chaos. But yeah, that's fine, no problem. Does beginning the golden visa application satisfy new and upcoming travel authorization requirements for travelers from the US and other countries? Not sure on that one. The golden visa quite simply allows you to have access to Portugal on receipt of the visa after 12 months. It has no change on anything up until when the visa is permitted. Hopefully that helps, but for any more specifics, drop me another question. Can you please explain the slide which was explaining the new policy after January 2022? I will send you a recording of the webinar just to save everyone kind of going through the slide again. But yeah, or just drop me an email, which will be better. We'll speak next week, and I'll go through it in a little more, with a little bit more time. How long do we need to stay invested with the property? Well, you need to have, it's going to take about 1 year to get the visa. You're going to need 5 years with the visa before you can apply for the passport. So in total, you would need to keep the property for that period of 6 years. How long do I have to stay invested after I get the passport? We don't have to stay invested. Once you have the passport, you get all the cash back. You can do whatever you like. You can buy whatever you like. There's no restrictions. You are free from the nest to do however you so wish. But yeah, you don't need to keep the property once you've got permanent residency or the passport. Is there a way to include grown children? Potentially, yes, if they're in full-time education or financially dependent. Otherwise, potentially not. But we always try and find a way where we can. Are there any property financing options with properties for the purposes of the golden visa? The property itself that qualifies for the visa cannot be financed, at least not up until the qualifying criteria. So if the property is 280, it has to be a cash purchase at 280. In theory, if the property was 400 and qualified at 280, then you could mortgage above that threshold. But as we're now looking at commercial properties, it's next to impossible to mortgage a commercial property from abroad. So in short, you cannot mortgage the property in question. However, you can raise finance from other properties by remortgage, or you can borrow money from family. Everything else is fine, really, as long as it's legal and as long as the money is transferred from an account in your name. Finance can be sought from elsewhere. It just needs to be cash for the property in question. The age of a dependent capped at 21. Would that be 21 at the time of application? Hi there, Robin. It needs to actually be past the application. I mean, you need to actually prove dependency at the outset, as well as the renewal periods after 2 and 4 years as well. But there are ways of which we can do that, even if older than 21. So in short, I'll talk you through the specifics and how you can make it work and make sure everybody is included. So it's not a black and white rule. Generally, we'll find a solution. Hi Del, does the bank account in Portugal have to be in the investor's name? Yes, it does. It doesn't have to be only in the person's name, but yes, it will need to be in the investor's name. Maybe not necessarily. The money has to come from the investor's name. The bank account, depending on how it's set up, there may be a variable answer to that question. But again, let's go through that on a one-to-one basis. Right. There are a few more questions, but I'm just conscious, of course, everyone's going to want to see some properties, so we'll come back to everything before we finish. Okay, so our recommendations right now, we'll start at 280. Okay, there's 2 options that we like at 280. Just as a quick recap, to qualify at that price point, we need a commercial property. We need one that is over 30 years old, that's been fully renovated, and in a low density area. So there's 4 boxes to tick. It's not that easy to find properties like that also have lots of incentives with a great developer as well. However, there are 2 that we particularly like. One is this one that you can see on the screen, which is actually due for completion in a town called ALVOR, which is not far from where I live. It's kind of like my staycation when I'm away from Albufeira. And ALVOR still is a low density area despite being right on the beachfront. So the hotel is a 5-star HILTON resort. Okay, as you can imagine, it will have all the bells and whistles of a luxurious HILTON hotel right on the beachfront. And the proposition works as follows. Now, you can invest the 280,000 euros into the hotel and become a co-owner of the development. And your name is added to the deeds. Okay, you have deed ownership along with the other investors for the hotel, and that enables you to qualify for the visa. Now, it's actually being built from Portugal's biggest property developer. He's been around for over 30 years with a portfolio of over 40 hotels now completed across Portugal. The incentives with this one are relatively simple. First of all, the developer offers to pay the initial purchase tax. Now, for those familiar with buying property in Portugal, the purchase tax is the biggest tax that you can pay, and it's normally 5 to 10% of the purchase price. But on this one, it would work out with the VAT about €23,000. But again, that is paid for by the developer, which is great. There is also a guaranteed buyback, which means that as soon as you don't need the property anymore, from year 6, you can trigger the buyback, which immediately replenishes the 280,000. Okay, you sell the equity back and release the 280,000, which is great because there's no lawyer fees. When you come to selling the house, there's no real estate fees, things like this. It's just a transfer of ownership. You get that 280 immediately back. And yeah, very simple. The downside is there's no interest. Okay, there's no rental income with this one. But yeah, it is. They do give you 7 days free stay in any of the hotels. There's kind of there's again over 40 4- and 5-star hotels to choose from. So that's good. It allows you to maintain your minimum stay requirements each year. But other than that, yeah, it's a developer that we've worked with for quite some time, and we can get applications through super fast before the deadline, all being well. So yeah, plus points, no rental income or interest, but it's a huge developer with a well-known hotel group, a very traditional way of qualifying for the visa at 280. So that's door number 1. Door number 2 at this price point, which is my personal preference at the moment, is actually a Wyndham Gardens project in the northeast of Portugal in a town called Mirandela, which is this town here. This hotel is actually already built. This is the hotel at the moment. And it's going through a full renovation, which has already started. It's due for completion just next year. And it will be a 3-star Wyndham Gardens hotel, which will look a little like this. Okay, when it's all done. Again, very similar proposition, this one. Again, qualifying at 280. It's a smaller hotel, hence only 110 investors. There's still about 10% of those slots still available. Please excuse the slight typo. It is a 3-star Wyndham hotel. Again, great developer, been around for a long time, big property portfolio. They also offer to pay the taxes. They also offer the guaranteed buyback. However, they also pay a share of a rental income as well. So actually pay €30,000 as soon as you complete the purchase as your share of the future rental income. Now, bear in mind that is a taxable 30,000, but after tax it comes just under €22,000. So that's a big plus. And of course, you get the 7 days free stay. Now, the hotel selection is not quite as generous, but there is 3 to choose from. There's one in the north, one in the middle, and one in the south. But I suppose with the extra €22,000, you could probably book yourself into any hotel you like anyway. So again, I generally say that if you was looking at where to go on a holiday, chances are you'd probably go to the 5-star HILTON hotel in the Algarve. However, as an investment and as a way to get the visa, the Wyndham hotel allows you to do exactly that with a lot less cash. So as an investment, it makes more sense on the Wyndham, but if you do have a preference towards the HILTON, both are very commendable options. Again, any questions on those, feel free to drop in the Q&A. Just a couple more for this evening. This one, we just released this one this week, actually. It's a bit of a curveball. It's actually not a hotel. This is actually a building right in the centre of Lisbon, literally 300 metres from the President's house, the Prime Minister's house, 300 metres from Parliament. And it's this building here. And it's going to be renovated. It's already under renovation. And when it's finished, it's going to be co-working space, which of course has an incredibly big demand in the centre of Lisbon. So yeah, a little different. Of course, you don't get your 7 days free stay, nor would you particularly want them to live in an office, kind of like me. But as an investment, it is, we like it because, first of all, it qualifies at 350. Okay, it's not a low density area, this one, so hence it qualifies at 350. There's only 20 investors required for this one. The developer, again, developer is a great company. The former tenant of the building was actually Google not too long back. Again, offering guaranteed buyback once you've got the passports. For this one, they actually pay 7 years rental income at 3% per year, and they actually pay that all up front as part of the purchase. So that equates to 21%, being 73,500 euros. Again, that's all paid right at the beginning of the contract. So a little bit more capital to be invested, but slightly more profitable as well. There's no taxes paid on this one, which is something to be mindful of. But yeah, a little bit different. Absolutely superb location in the centre of. It literally couldn't be in a better part of Portugal, in the centre of Lisbon. But yeah, a little bit different, slightly more profitable, slightly more at 350 by comparison. Okay, there's an example at 400,000. There is a Hard Rock hotel due for completion in ALVOR, in the Algarve. It's this very futuristic looking hotel at the bottom right hand side. Yeah, right in the beachfront. It'd be a 5-star Hard Rock hotel when it's all done. This one is quite simply a new build property. It's in a low density area, so it qualifies at 400, and yeah, all the taxes are paid. Again, it's actually the same developer as the HILTON that we looked at before, so all the taxes are paid. The buyback is in place. This one pays a rental of 4% per year from when the hotel is opened after the renovation, which is set for the end of 2025. So as a guide, you would have around about 4 years rental income at 4% per year, which I shouldn't need a calculator for, but I'm guessing that's about 16,000 euros per year, times 4, give or take 60,000 euros. That's paid on an annual basis. So again, you also get the 7 days free stay in any of the 40 plus hotels as well. So another good option. We like this one. That's all I'm going to run through tonight. There are some other options. Actually, Madeira, there's another option in ALVOR that we like. Property availability is rapidly changing. Sometimes a hotel will come back available temporarily if someone's not been able to get the cash together or can't meet the deadline. So, I'll always try and share with you what properties that we have. But for now, yeah, we're going to finish on that for some questions. I'm keen to get stuck into everyone's questions. So in the meantime, for any further information that we've not covered tonight, for a copy of the webinar, for any brochures, I've shown a couple of pictures, but for the full prospectus on these projects, please do get in contact. For, of course, the personalised cost estimates as well, with things like the government fees and legal fees, please get in contact. You can scan the QR code at the bottom. That'll take you straight through to Calendly, so you can look for the next available appointment for any one-to-one discussions. Naturally, you can drop me an email or a WhatsApp, depending on what time of the day it is. It is 7 o'clock on Friday night at this point, so I might not be too responsive on WhatsApp this evening, but otherwise, yeah, give me a shout, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. But for that, yeah, we've got a few minutes to fire through some questions. We'll start with the ones that have come in whilst I've been talking, and then I'll just make sure we've covered everything submitted before the webinar. Hi there, Holmos. For non-property investments, what is typically the rate of return of investment? Are there restrictions, requirements on what to invest into? The rate of return varies. Typically, we're not interested in funds that are paying less than 4%, so somewhere between 4 to 8% as a general range, depending on your appetite for investment risk and any personal preferences that you have. But the only restriction is that to qualify for the visa, the fund has to invest into at least 60% of its assets must be domiciled within Portugal. So they're not the kind of funds that you would choose from on a trading platform necessarily, because they have to be Portuguese domiciled, well, Portuguese bias funds. But like I said, there's various ones to choose from. Happy to chat through those if you want to book in some time to speak. Is there any medical requirement for children? or parents to get either resident visa, golden visa, or citizenship? No, there isn't. There is no medical requirements for the golden visa. The golden visa, just to be clear, is the visa permit to begin with, and after you've held the visa for 5 years, that's when we will then receive the citizenship, or in other words, your passport. But no, you do not need. There's no medical requirements for the program. What are the charges, including consultancy charges, between the investment amount? Yeah, so as mentioned before, there's no consultancy charges. We are paid by the developers. The costs consist of legal fees and government fees. They vary depending on family members and the property. But I'll go through the costs with you on the screen once I know a little bit more about what you're looking to do. Hi there, Nelly. What if you rent out your property for the first 5 years and come on holiday to stay? Could you still become eligible for a visa? Well, Nelly, the properties are already rented out. So the hotels, you have no liability or commitment to managing the hotel or cleaning the hotel or doing the check-ins. That's all done by the managing company, like HILTON or WYNDHAM. So it's kind of null and void, really. Kind of see it as being a silent shareholder. Okay, you kind of own equity in the hotel, but you don't have any worry about it being rented or how popular it is and things like this. So, yeah, as long as you buy a qualifying property, yes, you'll be fine. Yeah, that's fine. What does buyback mean? Okay, so buyback is basically the offer of buying the property back. So you're buying the property initially, and after the 6 years, you'll have an offer for the developer to buy back the property at the same price. So you buy it at 280 and you get 280 back with the buyback. Sometimes there is mandatory buybacks where both buyer and seller have to honor that buyback. And sometimes it's an optional buyback where you can choose further down the line if you want to sell it back. So the ones that we've looked at, the co-ownership programs are always mandatory buybacks, but it just means you don't have to worry about what it's going to be worth in the future. Obviously, if property prices go up, you'll be a little bit down that you've got to sell it back at the price you paid for it. But if they go down, again, you don't have to worry. You just know you're going to get back what you paid into it. So yeah, that's a buyback. What is in it for the developers? Hi there, Teasy. Hopefully I've pronounced that right. What is in it for the developers? Well, the developers get to sell a property. They also make a fortune in rental income over the next 5 years. They also raise very low interest cash. It's capital raising by holding equity in a hotel. Naturally, the developers are going to be using that capital to expand into other projects. So yeah, it's very profitable for the developers. So we're very happy to, it's a very clever program. The developers get paid, the investor gets the visa and the money back, but we get paid for facilitating the whole process. So yeah, they're not just good people. They are making plenty of money along the way. Is there medical requirement? Yes, we've covered that one off already. Are there any properties that give a monthly rental income? Not a monthly rental income. No, you will generally find that doesn't happen with commercial properties. Annual income, yes, that's fine. But yeah, each of the commercial properties are predetermined where you get an annual income, or it's all paid up front. Obviously, the only thing that's better than being paid every month is getting the next 5 or 7 years paid up front, which is an option with some of the developments. Hi there, Michael. I'm Egyptian, Australian, Melbourne based, and I know lots of people in Egypt who would be interested in a business deal. Okay. Depends what kind of business deal, I suppose. Michael, if you think of setting up a business to qualify, great. Yeah, give us a shout. It's not really something that we get involved with, but I can certainly put you in contact with a good law firm to help you set up the business. Yeah, so what is the minimum amount? We've covered this. Purchase of a movable property. What with the golden visa, but before citizenship, am I allowed unlimited access to the Schengen region? Good question, Brian. Hi. The answer is no. The answer is no. You have unlimited access to Portugal. during the visa process, still maintaining your 3-month restriction in the rest of Europe until you have the citizenship, and it's at that point that you have unlimited travel to the Schengen region. There is no work requirements, there's no income requirements for the golden visa. Okay, so it's as long as you have a qualifying property and you have a clean criminal record, that's about it, really. It's kind of like a VIP pass. So yeah, don't worry about the income. That is relevant with other permanent residency visas, but not with the golden visa. What's the guarantee of citizenship after the golden visa? Good question. Hi there, Rajesh. Formally, there's a 97% issuing rate of, there's a good stat. 97% of golden visas go to citizenship. The 3% that don't quite simply picked up a criminal record or they sold the property. But the criteria is really simple. As long as you keep a clean criminal record, you understand basic level of Portuguese, and you've kept the visa for 5 years, which includes keeping the property, it's straightforward. I want to know if the payment can be scheduled in an installment. Unfortunately not. The property has to be paid for in full before we can submit your application. Can we still get a golden visa in Portugal? We currently own a house in Guarda, and I'm looking at properties in that area. Hi there, Linda. You can still get a golden visa in Portugal, and just following the criteria that we've covered, from 280. Yeah, so you're okay, but time is upon us. Hi, Samir. What's the available time frame for new applications? Yeah, so we've got until the end of next week, really, for new applications. After that time, we're just simply not going to have enough time to guarantee meeting the deadline. So if you want that guarantee that, if you don't meet the deadline, that we will pay all the costs, we can only really do that whilst we know we have enough time to complete everything. So up until the end of next week, realistically, any time after that is possible in theory, but it's very difficult. Okay. Got loads of questions coming up before the webinar, so we'll come back to those in a sec. So some live questions for other countries. Do we get 3 months visa if we obtain the golden visa? Yes, you do. You do, and you get visa-free travel with the visa. So let me just think about this one. Let me make sure I'm not getting mixed up. You do get Schengen travel. Yes, you get travel throughout Europe with the golden visa. You still have the Schengen travel, so you still have the 3-month restriction, but you're okay. Because when you have the Portuguese passport, then you have no restriction. That's when you can travel for as long as you like. So you don't have to physically live in Portugal full-time to gain your visa. No, you don't. That is why the golden visa is so popular compared to the other routes, because the minimum stay requirement is only 2 weeks in every 2-year period. So you can start that 5-year clock towards getting the passport without moving anywhere, which is great. As long as you come on your holiday here every year or two, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. And it's the only visa. It's the only visa that allows you to do that without having to be here full time. Can I stay in Portugal forever? You can indeed. If you get tired of Portugal, you can try Spain, maybe Italy or France. All of which you can do with the passport. I want to start a business by renting a shop. Yeah, okay, not one for tonight's webinar. Happy to discuss if looking to qualify for the visa from 500,000, which is what you need for the business. How fast can we get the golden visa? Yeah, so as mentioned, the fastest that we've done it is 10 days, start to finish. And on that note, I hope everyone found the information helpful. And like I said, for any questions that you have for costings, brochures, further information, drop me an email. At this late stage, I would recommend simply booking some time to speak, and I can go through everything with you in a timely fashion to make sure you have all the information you need and as much time as you can get to, of course, consider that information. So other than that, thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, the next webinar will be, I think, in a couple of weeks' time. So I'll keep everyone posted on that. I wish everyone the very best and hopefully look forward to speaking to everyone soon. Thank you much.